Alright, welcome to the second discussion on front-end web development. We will be talking about HTML, which builds the structure and content of websites. Alright, before we dive in, let's talk about our agenda. We will discuss HTML basics, the elements including their attributes, and how the structure of a web page is set up, talking about hierarchy and nesting. We'll also look at some common elements that make up the content of the web page. So let's dive in. Basically, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, which is used to create and design web pages. So thinking about the human skeleton, which is made up of different parts, just like that, we also have HTML, which has different parts that make up a web page. These different parts that make up a web page are known as elements. The elements usually have an opening and a closing tag, and the content is in between those tags. Some elements have only one tag, which are called void elements. But we also have attributes within elements which help to provide it with additional information. Like an image will need additional information about the source or the alternative text. The structure of a web page is really very defined. It's the same for all web pages. They all start with doc type to tell you it is an HTML document for the browser to understand. And you have a root element which has an opening and closing tag with HTML. Within this root element, you're nested in between the body, which follows the head element. The head element contains metadata about the web page, just like any human being could have a passport. The passport is not a human being, but the passport has information about the human being. So the head element has information about the web page, like the title of the web page. The metadata, things like the author, description, and keywords that are very useful for search engine optimization. You can also link other documents to the web page. You can include the CSS style, the JavaScript, and so on and so forth. The body of the HTML document contains three major parts: the header, the main, and the footer. The header has information about links, calls to action, logos, navigation, and so on. The main section actually contains what is actually the content of your web page. You could have articles, sections, paragraphs, and so on, while the footer includes stuff like copyrights and other links to other pages. Now, let's move on to the structure, or from the structure to the content of the web page. You realize that HTML has over 100 different types of elements. Elements that are in the root, metadata, or section, or also headings, which range from H1 to H6, H1 being the biggest heading. You could also use the address, which is a very common element, given that most users use mobile phones, and you can put the address of a location and you can navigate to it. Other text documents or other text elements could be in blocks. For instance, the list, which could be ordered or unordered, or definition list. You could also have quoted text or pre-formatted text, which span the entire width of your page from the left to the right border. So the entire width is going to cover block elements. Other elements do not take the entire width of the page. Those elements span just a section of the width. For instance, links, abbreviations, semantic elements like underline, quote, cite, and so on, and also annotations like subscript, superscript, and highlighting using the mark element. Other elements that you get to use include span or line breaks, small, and also including datetime features. There are a lot more elements in HTML. Elements could be multimedia, images, audios, videos, which help the page pop out. You could also embed objects, pictures, and other portals, and add tables, which could structure your data into rows and columns. Do not use tables for formatting. Use them to organize your data. A form could also be added to your web page to accept user input and so on. Some elements have been discontinued because they work with older browsers but are not really useful for newer browsers. You should try to change this in old and legacy projects and avoid using them in new projects. Alternatively, you could use CSS for some of these elements, or you replace them with newer elements. We can all conclude that HTML is just a .html element that is written in text. The HTML helps to structure the content of structure the web page and also build the content of the page. We do have elements that create that structure of the page, which have opening and closing tags, as well as attributes to give more information. We looked at some of the common contents or elements in the page. For further resources, you can always search online for more practice tutorials, but you definitely need to use the HTML validator to be able to make sure that your HTML meets the correct needs and also increases your search engine optimization. You can also go to caniuse.com to check that your elements are actually compatible with the browser, and use VS Code extensions to help you get better, more consistent code.